Okay, so I'm back in Unity now, and as you can see from the last videos, I've replaced my platforms. So I just went and downloaded a different platformer pack from the asset store, and I've dragged up some of these blocks and some grass or whatnot, and I'll organize them better later. But just one thing I didn't mention before is that generally after you've dragged one of your sprites on, you want to drag it back as a prefab. So I'm going to drag that platform in as a prefab, and the reason for this is if I want to do some updating later, so say I want to change what layer it's on, I can just apply that once to the prefab, and all the other objects from here will be updated at the same time. So now if I want more platforms, I'm just going to drag it out like that, right? And I can build a level all across the game. But let's just leave that for now. In this video, I want to talk about the box collider and something called the Rigidbody. Now, we'll start with Rigidbody. If I click on my main character here and we have a look at the components, oh, it already has a box collider. I'm just going to remove it. Remove. Okay. And I play my game. Play. So far, nothing's happening in the game, right? The character's just stationary. The platforms aren't moving, nothing like that. That's because I haven't told it to do anything just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first give it some physics. And we give the player physics, or we give any object in Unity physics with a component called Rigidbody. Right? Now, when you type in Rigidbody here, so to add it, you click on Add Component, type in Rigidbody in the search bar. Two options come up. One's Rigidbody and one's Rigidbody 2D. Rigidbody is for 3D development, so we'll focus on Rigidbody 2D. So I'll click on Rigidbody 2D, and then it adds this component up here. I'm just going to hide all that for now. And each component, as you've seen from the transform, has a few settings. Right, so for my player, just giving it that Rigidbody 2D and playing the game, this is what happens. Right? So it's added physics, so it's given it gravity, mass, etc. But the problem is it still doesn't know when it's supposed to hit something. Right? So to stop that, we can also add a component called the box collider. So I'm going to type in box collider, and same as before, there's a box collider and a box collider 2D. We want to choose the box collider 2D. Now, I chose box collider, but there's also ones called, I'll just show you. So if I just type in collider, right, you have a capsule collider, circle collider, composite collider, edge, mesh, etc. Most of these actually will use a fair amount of processing power to compute. So most of the time we'll just focus on the box collider and the circle collider, and we can do most things with them or combinations of them. So here we selected box collider and it's set up. Notice that a little green area has popped up around my character. That's the area that will actually collide. So if I click on edit collider, I can now drag it to where my sprite is. So computers don't actually, they're not actually smart. They can't tell when you have swords or fireballs or anything like that. The only thing they understand is objects. So when we're putting a collider, we're just telling it to only recognize this space around the sprite. Right, so it's only going to recognize this box, and make sure the bottom bit is up near the leg somewhere. Cool. But the thing with Unity, I'll press play just so I can show you, is if I press play, even though my player has the box collider, it'll still fall through because all your platforms or anything you want to be able to collide with or touch or manipulate should also be given the box collider. So I'll click on that platform and I'll just add a box collider 2D, and now I'll click on play and we'll see what happens. Right, so now when I click on play, I land land back here on the platform. So now see here how this platform that I just gave Box Collider to has Box Collider, but this platform doesn't, even though it was from the prefab. That's because when you change a setting from one of the sprites, a little option up here comes up with a prefab. It says select, revert, or apply. Right, so if you change settings to one of the objects and you want to update your prefab with those settings, you click apply. And then now if I go to these others, they'll all have that Box Collider. And any others that I'll drag on from the prefab will also have that Box Collider. So I want to do the same there with my knight, because all knights that I bring on now, I want to have the Box Collider and the Rigidbody 2D. Cool, now just to go through some of these settings, mass is fairly straightforward. Linear drag is to do with, it's kind of like air resistance, so it kind of like resists the momentum of the object. Little bit confusing, but for now just leave it at default. Angular drag is the same as linear drag but at an angle, so when you rotate. Gravity is the force of gravity, so right now it's at 1. We'll leave it at 1 for now.